Welcome to our live from AARC 2025 Congress podcast. I'm Lisa Weisenberger, Director of Engagement at Media, and I'm here today with Senior Vice President of Government Affairs, Miriam O'Day. Thanks, Miriam, for joining me today to talk about AARC's government affairs efforts in 2025 and what's on the docket for 2026. To begin, can you give us a brief update on the SOAR Act and what we can expect in the upcoming year?
So this is the 119th Congress. And as our listeners know, Congress runs for 2-year sessions. So the end of the 119th Congress will be in 2026. So our legislation that we've been working on in 2025 will still be alive under the current Congress until the end of 2026 in December. We had a very successful fly-in. We've done a number of high-level fly-ins where we've brought in the executive directors of the organizations that are part of the coalition. Of course, we had our AARC fly-in with our PACT members. We had about 250 meetings in one day. And all of this has been to promote the SOAR Act and educate members of Congress about oxygen and the access issues that patients have both to the appropriate equipment and also to healthcare professionals. So that's a long answer to say we've done a lot of education. We also have been able to get a whole number of co-sponsors that have joined us. And the more co-sponsors that we have on legislation, the better off the chances we have of promoting that legislation when a vehicle comes along that the SOAR Act can attach itself to and travel, hopefully, all the way through passage.
What other legislation is in progress for 2026, since this is almost the end of the year when we're recording this, especially in relation, obviously, to respiratory health?
So for 2026, we're also promoting legislation that makes telehealth pulmonary rehab a permanent benefit. The telehealth legislation is still alive. It's a partnership that we have with AACVPR and ATS and ACCP. This legislation has been picked up and added to the larger telehealth bills, and we'll see telehealth pulmonary rehab get a 2-year extension with other telehealth extensions, but we would like to continue to promote a permanent fix. And so we continue to talk about a permanent bill. We are going to, in 2026, have our PACT fly-in, our respiratory fly-in, on June 1st and the 2nd, and we'll be talking about both pieces of legislation then.
That's exciting stuff that's on the horizon. And I guess 2026 is also shaping up to be an exciting year for the Respiratory Care Interstate Compact, or the RCIC, and possibly beginning its implementation. Can you give us a little bit of an update on the progress, which has been huge in 2025?
It has been. I mean, considering that we finished the draft legislation and launched it in January of 2025, we have 4 states that have already passed the legislation: Washington, Alabama, Montana, and Iowa. And we have the RCIC legislation sitting on the governor's desk in Wisconsin. So that looks like we're going to have 5 states that pass the RCIC before we even get to the end of this year. We have probably about 6 or 7 states that are lined up to do pre-filing. So they've actually had the legislation submitted to their state legislature. It's been reviewed, and when the sessions open in January, the legislation will be dropped with some of the first bills that go in those states. So we expect to be able to, by January or February, say that we have 7 states who have passed the legislation, and that triggers the next phase. And the next phase is the establishment of the RCIC Commission. And so the commission will be propped up sometime in early 2026, moving through to the fall, because those are all very transparent public processes. So they have to go through every type of public process that includes hearings, announcements, time for comments, and allows the general public to weigh in, as well as medical professionals around the country.
So is that one way that members can get involved to help?
Absolutely. And the commission is going to be comprised of commissioners that are either work on the licensure boards or the medical boards that have oversight over respiratory therapy licensure, or they're appointed by the governor, but they have to be an employee of the state. So those will be the first commissioners from the first states. AARC has an ex officio seat on the commission, so we'll have an opportunity to be right at the table. And as Sam Giordano used to say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So we will definitely be at the table, and that'll be a way for us to be able to firsthand give information to our members about what's happening in terms of documents coming out, processes, hearings, meetings, etc. And they will have an opportunity to weigh in on all of these issues. The commission will make the rules and regulations, come up with punitive actions if there are infringements on license, and a number of other questions, some of them that have been posed by the states while we're going through this process. So some of the states that have actually pushed back on state sovereignty issues, we expect that once the commission is up and running, they'll have answered some of those questions. The rules and regs will be in place, and those states will no longer have the reluctance that they've had, and they'll join us, we hope, in the compact.
Wow, that's super exciting news for the next year, basically the beginning of the year, hopefully. How else can members and advocates get involved with the efforts, especially related to the SOAR Act?
I would say to stay tuned to the advocacy section of the website. Our communication team, including you, Lisa, do a fabulous job of making sure that all the current documents are uploaded there. Our action alerts are sent out to everyone who's on our mailing list. One of the very progressive and forward-thinking things that Dan Garrett did as our executive director was to approve sending out our action alerts to non-members. So a lot of our communication just goes out to members, but our action alerts also go out to non-members because everyone who's part of the respiratory care community should have an opportunity to weigh in on advocacy and government affairs.
For sure. It's really important to make sure that AARC.org is on your safe senders list so you can get those alerts when we send them out. You mentioned a little bit about the respiratory care or Washington, D.C. fly-in in 2026. How can people attend that or get involved with that effort?
So the fly-in has traditionally been a partnership between the state respiratory societies and the national organization, the AARC. What the state societies do is they sponsor the travel for their representatives, and then while the advocates are on site, we pay for their meals and hotel nights. We would really like to encourage other people attending our fly-in, and anybody who would like to come just needs to reach out and let us know that they're interested in coming, and we will figure out a way to reserve a room for them and have them included. Of course, our training takes place half day, the first day on a Monday, and then we go to the Hill. We storm the Hill on Tuesday with our 200 plus meetings that take place every year. And again, we're happy to connect any individual who would like to come on their own dime and pay for their hotel. We can connect you with your state respiratory society. You can go on group meetings. You can go on individual meetings. We're happy to have more people join us.
That's great. What do you think is the best part about going to Washington, D.C. for that fly-in?
Well, I can tell you for this year, about half the people who attended it was their first time. And so for me, one of the best parts is seeing somebody who has never engaged in advocacy or government affairs go to a meeting and the lights come on because they realize that they're talking to people who can make decisions and have oversight over these issues. And these are people who, if they are able to pitch and sell them on our product, which is that we want Medicare oxygen payment reform. We want respiratory therapists to be able to see patients and do home visits, particularly when they're discharged from the hospital to the home. We want to be able to see that patients have a bill of rights and that there's an add-on payment for liquid oxygen, and that we want a standardized ordering template. If you can convince somebody that those things need to be done and get them to co-sponsor and support our bill, that is really exciting. And we have a debrief that is just one of the best feel-good meetings that takes place in the whole year, to hear from people who have been to the Hill, many of them seasoned people and many of them brand new. It's a really exciting time and a really exciting event. Most important, after the fly-in, is the follow-up, because a lot of what gets done in Washington is really based on relationships, and people who are constituents are the ones that members of Congress really need to listen to.
We hope lots of people take your advice and get involved with those efforts. So what other thoughts would you like to add about current and future advocacy efforts to just coming up, or your thoughts in general?
Yeah, I would say that if anybody feels inclined to get involved in government affairs and promote anything that is on our agenda currently, they can reach out to me or anybody on staff and find their way to me, and we'll get you engaged. If you have questions about the process and you'd like to learn more, we can lead you to podcasts that we've done or documents that we've listed that talk about the committees of jurisdiction and the nitty-gritty of the process, right? How the sausage gets made, they call it. In Washington. And if you want to learn more about that, we can do tutorials for you on that and talk about those things. But anybody who wants to engage, reach out and we will find a way to get you engaged either at the national level or at your state level with some of the things that are going on with the RCIC, the APRT.
Yes, so important to reach out to us at info@aarc.org or at membermail@aarc.org, and we can connect you with the right person if you'd like to get involved. Thank you, Miriam, for joining us today and giving us this advocacy update for 2025 and beyond. Be sure to visit aarc.org/advocacy for updates on all of AARC's upcoming efforts. And be sure to subscribe to the AARC Perspectives podcast wherever you download and listen to your favorite podcasts. And be sure to share these resources with your colleagues and friends. Thanks, Miriam, for joining us today.
Thank you, Lisa.